It's that one Texas district that can seesaw every year.
This is a district that Hillary Clinton won. This is a district that was won by Beto O'Rourke in 2018, yet I continue to survive and thrive.
A Republican eked by last time, but his opponent has returned.
We've got a lot of momentum. Folks are very excited about what's possible.
This week, we look at the tight Texas campaign where the stakes go beyond the Lone Star State. Hello and thank you for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Phil Prazen. The Texas legislature passed their bills and went home. Now the focus shifts from the Capitol to the campaign trail. And this week, Democrats running for president will face off in the first of many debates. And then scores of congressional candidates are already out and campaigning. This week, we're looking closer at one battleground district that won't pick a consistent side. It's the state's 23rd congressional district. The boundaries stretch from the suburbs of San Antonio all the way south to the border and west nearly to El Paso. Right now it's held by Republican Will Hurd. He won the seat from a Democrat in 2014 and was reelected by just over 3,000 votes in 2016. Last year, Hurd held on to the seat, beating Gina Ortiz-Jones by less than 1,000 votes. But she's back in 2020. Today you'll hear from both candidates, starting with the incumbent. Our Wes Rappaport sat down with Congressman Will Hurd to discuss the border, trade, and other issues affecting Texans in this key district.
Here now with Congressman Will Hurd. Thanks for being with us. Want to briefly talk to you about tariffs and border policy. What's your assessment as these last few weeks of negotiations with Mexico have happened, and kind of where do things stand as you see it?
Well, first and foremost, we all got to remember that a tariff is actually a tax on the American consumer. So as we go into the summer, we don't want the price of pumping gas to be higher. We don't want to, many families are going to have to purchase clothes for their kids for the summer. We don't want those prices to go through the roof. We don't want the price of food on our table to go through the roof. And hopefully we won't see this administration put tariffs on Mexico, because again, it's going to impact the American consumer. But we also got to make sure that we're addressing this humanitarian crisis that we're seeing on the border, and it's a shared problem between us and Mexico, and we should be working together in order to address this threat.
Well, Congressman, what do some of those solutions in your mind look like?
Well, first and foremost, we should be addressing the root causes of this problem. The root causes of this problem is lack of economic opportunities, poverty, and violence in the Northern Triangle. That's El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. These are the factors that are pushing people up into North America. So I think the first step should be, or a step should be, we should select a special representative for the Northern Triangle that is responsible for coordinating policy with those three countries, also working with the rest of the Western Hemisphere. Because again, this is not just a problem for the U.S. or Mexico. Second step, I would also like to see the U.S. intelligence community needs to view this as a high priority threat, so we increase the intelligence collection on the kingpin human smugglers that are moving people from Central America to El Paso and Eagle Pass. Last month, 144,000 people came into this country illegally. That means 144,000 people last month had the phone number of a kingpin human smuggler who they were calling to coordinate where they find the bus, where they pick that bus up. We should be collecting that information, getting it to our national intelligence community so that they can work with our allies in those countries to prevent people from coming here. And then the third thing we need to do is we need to address our asylum laws. Our asylum laws were written in the 1980s. They're being taken advantage of. And the people that get hurt when our asylum laws are getting taken advantage of are the people that need asylum. That's why I introduced the Asylum Review Act this year in order to make sure we're addressing that problem.
I want to switch gears to campaign season. What do you hear the most in terms of important issues from the people you represent in District 23?
Well, I think first and foremost, securing the border. This is a big issue. Nobody believes that we should have open borders. People recognize my background and experience and been working on this issue since I've been in Congress. So this is something we hear a lot about. I also get to talk to a lot of families about their concern to make sure that their kids are ready for jobs that don't exist today. And the reason we have income inequality is because we have education inequality, and making sure that our kids are getting trained in things like coding so that they can be ready for the workplace of the future. And then obviously the other thing that has always been an issue is healthcare. We should be able to increase access to and decrease costs of healthcare. We need to make sure that we're protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Everybody knows that Obamacare hasn't been working, but it has covered people with pre-existing conditions, and we should be able to protect that. When the Democrats want to go to Medicare for all, they basically mean that you're going to get rid of the health care that you have through your job. And most people don't want to see that happen. It's ridiculous that some drug providers, brand names, try to pay the people that make generics to not introduce a generic brand. That shouldn't be happening, and again, I'm sponsoring legislation that addresses that problem.
Gina Ortiz-Jones has announced that she's running against you again, came within 1,000 votes during 2018. What is different for you about 2020? How is this approach going to be different?
Well, there's a reason that I continue to win when folks think I shouldn't or expect me because of the nature of the district. This is a district that Hillary Clinton won. This is a district that was won by Beto O'Rourke in 2018, yet I continue to survive and thrive. And you know, the reason I do that is because I'm out in the community, I'm working on behalf of people. Folks know that I'm an independent voice, and it's going to represent the 23rd Congressional District of Texas.
Congressman Hurd will face challengers in the March Republican primary. So far, 2 GOP candidates have announced plans to run. Both claim they're more conservative than Hurd. Dr. Alma Arredondo Lynch is a dentist who lives near Uvalde. She ran against Hurd in the 2018 primary. Raul Reyes is a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel. He was born and raised in Del Rio. But Hurd's biggest challenge at the polls will likely come from a Democrat who almost beat him last November.
Folks are very excited about what's possible when they have somebody that's actually going to fight for them.
Up next, you'll hear from a woman working to turn this Texas district from red to blue. This week, we're taking a closer look at the U.S. House District 23 here in Texas. It's a campaign that could help decide which party holds power in Congress. We just heard from Will Hurd, the Republican incumbent. Now we'll introduce you to his main challenger. I sat down with Democrat Gina Ortiz-Jones. She narrowly lost to Hurd last time, and she says this time will be different. So last election was a squeaker.
926 votes.
Why do this again?
Look, the reasons that I ran last time are the reasons I'm running this time, right? We still need to bring down the cost of healthcare. We still need to make sure that we're not leaving folks behind in our rural areas, and we still need to make sure that our district is as economically viable as it can be. But you know, the main issue that I talked about last time was healthcare, and that continues to be the issue that folks want to talk to me about, particularly bringing down the cost of it, right? There was, you know, Will Hurd recently had an opportunity to vote on a bipartisan bill that would have brought down the cost of prescription drugs, and he chose to not do that.
Is there anything you're going to do differently this time?
Well, look, 926 votes, right? We did a lot of things right. And so I think what I'm very excited about is that, you know, we're going into this with infrastructure in place.
I looked at your website last time. You advocated for a single-payer system. Tell me a little bit about what that would look like on the ground.
So to be clear, what I advocated for is increased access to health care, right? So previously there was never any mention of taking away people's access to private insurance. And so what I support is allowing people to buy into Medicare if they so choose, but also allowing people who have private insurance to keep that if they're happy with that.
If you go to Congress, would healthcare be your thing, or do you want to specialize in some type of other aspect of governing it? Healthcare
is the issue that people in the district want to talk about the most. Texas, you You can't talk about healthcare in this country without talking about healthcare in Texas. 45% of our kids in Texas rely on CHIP or Medicaid for insurance. A woman having a baby in Texas is 7 times more likely to die during that process than if she had that baby in California. You know, we're a state that did not expand Medicaid under the ACA. So there's 2.2 million people in our country that would have access to Medicaid if their states expanded. 600,000 of those people live in Texas. So I will absolutely be the person that is championing increased access to healthcare, bringing down the cost of healthcare, and in particular, you know, closing the gap between our rural healthcare outcomes and that which we see in our big cities, right? When I go into communities and I talk to community healthcare leaders there, something like telemedicine would go a long way to address the gaps in care that they have, but they don't have the underlying infrastructure, right? If you don't have a secure, consistent internet connection or broadband connection, then you can't really fully realize telemedicine.
The other big issue in Texas 23, immigration, of course. What should we be doing that we are not doing right now on that issue? You know,
as I travel along and visit with our communities along the border, those relationships with their sister cities, that's a source of strength. Those social ties, those economic ties, those cultural ties are sources of strength. I was just meeting with the mayor of Del Rio. And, you know, they're obviously on the front line of this. Del Rio's 3 miles from the border. And the biggest issue there is the long wait lines as, you know, you have CBP officers that are pulled from manning the ports of entry because they're dealing with other issues.
Do we just need more people there at the ports of entry?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the reason they're not there is because they're pulled to do other things, right? I think when we look at, first of all, I think it is certainly how you understand this, how you like approach immigration writ large. I think there's certainly a compassionate piece that we have to understand about this, but there's also the clear economic impact that immigration provides.
So, what do you think we should do with undocumented immigrants who are the people who are living here already?
I think we absolutely need to pass a Clean Dream Act. Absolutely. We made a promise to them. We should keep it. And I don't agree with Will Hurd's approach by which he sees them as political pawns for border resources. I just don't think that's right.
Allow them to become fully American citizens.
Absolutely.
For you, is the line drawn there, or would that also expand to other members of their family or the other people who aren't dreamers, who've been here before?
So I think the path to citizenship is absolutely for the dreamers, as well as for for folks that are already here. That's something that, to me, it just makes sense. Nobody should be living in the shadows in our country. Nobody should be living in fear in our country.
Before Ortiz-Jones can face Hurd, she'll have to get past a few Democrats vying for the nomination.
I have filed to run for Texas 23 U.S. Congress.
Rosalinda Ramos Abubara announced her candidacy earlier this month. She is a San Antonio activist for LGBTQ causes. Liz Wall filed her candidacy only a few weeks after the 2018 elections. She's a former San Antonio news anchor. Wall made news in 2014 when she resigned on the air. She did it to protest misinformation by the Russian-backed news operation she worked for. Then Brandon Waterman filed his candidacy in May. The San Antonio resident has not yet launched a campaign website.
I think we can confidently say the state will be more competitive. Republicans are already behaving that way.
Texas is a red state, but the blue team is coming in hot. And now new poll numbers are giving some insight into changes in the state. This week, the 2020 campaign picks up as Democrats running for president will debate in front of the nation for the first time. And Texans have their favorites at this point. The University of Texas and Texas Tribune polled registered voters in the state. The results show Joe Biden leading the way with Texas Democrats. He came out 8 points ahead of the Texan Beto O'Rourke. The poll put Beto slightly ahead of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. The other Texan in the race, Julian Castro, tied for 7th in the poll. They also asked voters from both parties how they felt about President Trump, and Texans came out divided. Take a look. 39% of Texas voters say they would definitely re-elect President Trump, and 11% said they'd probably do it. But then 43% said there is no way they'd vote for him. The remaining 7% said they'd probably not vote for the president. Do the math, and that's a 50-50 split. The people behind the poll say it's one indicator of a very competitive election ahead.
I think we can confidently say the state will be more competitive. Republicans are already behaving that way. It's the situation on the ground in terms of Republican candidates already working harder and talking about the fact that it's going to be more difficult. But whether we've actually seen a turning of the tide and whether, we're going to really see the kind of competition that would lead the national parties to invest more money in Texas still remains to be seen.
The UT Texas Tribune poll found that Texans have mixed feelings about all the people moving to the state. 39% of people surveyed think the state's growing population has been good for Texas, while 34% think more people coming is bad. Political beliefs seem to influence those feelings. More Democrats than Republicans believe that growth is good for the state. There's also a gender divide. The poll found more men than women think population growth is good in Texas. It's a brand new landscape for people campaigning in Texas.
It's becoming very clear that Texas is the biggest battleground state in the country. Poll after poll after poll has shown it.
Up next, we turn to our panel for insight into the battle between folks who want to keep Texas red or turn it blue. It's time to take a deeper dive into the prospects for campaign season in Texas. For perspective, we're joined by Summer Wise, a member of the State Executive Committee for the Republican Party, and Manny Garcia, the Executive Director for Texas Democrats. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, Summer, let's start with you. There's about 6 to 8 other congressional districts that are competitive. Most of them are held by Republicans. Do you think that they have done the job, their job, to be reelected?
I think so, yeah. We're seeing some good examples of leadership and good policies that have been enacted, and we're seeing the results. And you can't argue with success. Here in Austin, we have less than a 3% unemployment rate. The economy is booming, and I think prospects look good all around the state and the country.
Democrats picked up 2 last time, 1 in Dallas, 1 in Houston. Do you have hopes of getting those back, or are those gone for the Democrats forever?
We're very optimistic for 2020. I think with this being a presidential election and Trump's popularity and the success of his policies and the prosperity that we're seeing across the country, that's going to lead to a greater turnout, and I think that's going to really help out the candidates down the ballot.
Now, Manny, I'm sure you think that you can take back some of these Republican seats, but on a statewide level, there still are more Republican voters than Democrats. And what do you think will be different this year? Why will it be different, in your opinion?
Look, it's becoming very clear that Texas is the biggest battleground state in the country. Poll after poll after poll has shown it. And when we're looking at the targets, we're just 9 seats away from flipping the Texas House. There are more than 18 seats within single digits. There are more than 10 congressional districts that are on the target list. 6 already, the National Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has talked about them. We have a U.S. Senate race that is already within the margin of error. And when you ask Texans whether or not they would vote for Donald Trump, 60% of independents already say hell no. And it's already a toss-up race.
Now, but to Summer's point, I mean, the economy is good right now. Don't most people vote with their pocketbooks?
I think most people want to know what people are doing to make sure that they change their daily lives. Are you getting health care done? And what we've seen on the health care front is both the Texas State Legislature and Congress is incapable of doing anything. Are you creating solutions for immigration so that you're not separating families, so that you're not putting kids in cages in Texas, and the administration refuses to do anything positively and in fact is doing something real cruel that Texans do not stand for. So when it comes to issue by issue, Texans are siding with the Democratic Party.
As Summer, so many of these seats will turn based on the top of the ticket. Do these closer poll numbers for President Trump worry you at all?
You know, I think we saw last election in 2016 that Trump defies the odds, and that you can't rely on polling information to predict the outcome of an election when Donald Trump is on the top of the ticket. So I don't think we're too worried about polling or the information that the pundits are giving us. What Texans see is that that they're doing well, they're prospering, and they're thriving in this economy. And we're seeing people flocking to the state in droves. Over 1,000 people a day are coming to Texas. And so we're seeing it in the results. We're seeing it in our lives every day that we're all doing well, and I think that's going to be reflected in the election outcome in 2020.
And Mandy, the state Republican leaders seem to be pretty popular. I guess Governor Abbott in particular has I think about 60% approval rating, and they just left the legislative session where they did do school finance reform and they did do major property tax reform. I mean, won't Texas voters look at those results and say that the Texas Republican Party could be separate or different from the Nationals?
I think what they saw is that when more Democrats were in the building, 12 seats picked up in 2016, the most since Reconstruction, that the conversation in the Texas legislature completely changed. Finally, there was movement on public school finance reform. Finally, there was movement and there was change in the tone and tenor of what the legislature took on, and that's because more Democrats were in the building. When you're seeing this change in the state, we really appreciate all the new Texans that are coming to the state. From 2014 to 2018, that was 1.8 million new Texans added to the voter registration rolls. That's like the entire voting age population of New Mexico. And there were majority women and majority people of color, people who are inclined to vote for the Democratic Party.
Manny Summer, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Phil Prazen. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.